Hi and welcome back to our channel, where we recap your favorite games for you. Today we will be recapping the blockbuster game that we all played in our good old times called Grand Theft Auto 4. So without further ado, let's begin! The game's opening scene begins with a shot of a cargo ship headed for Liberty City. Niko Bellic, our protagonist and ex-soldier from Eastern Europe, is on the ship out looking at the city and had decided to move to Liberty City after the war on a promise of opportunities and beautiful women by his cousin Roman, but soon enough finds out they were all lies when he meets him and sees his pathetic condition instead of the villas and sports cars he had been promised. Roman, who is a taxi driver, introduces Niko to his girlfriend Mallory at his office and takes him as a lookout to warn him if he saw Vlad's goons, whom he owed money to as he gambled. Niko saves Roman from an Albanian group of loan sharks and gives them a beating, teaching them a lesson, also revealing that Bleeder, one of their members, is the reason Niko was forced to move to Liberty City, and meets Michelle, a friend of Mallory, on an errand run for Roman, and they go to a bowling alley on their first date. Niko helps Roman in his business, doing some errands for his friends Jermaine and Jacob before getting a call from Vlad, who persuaded him to work for him, seeing he was owed money by his cousin. Niko works as a loan shark, collecting some owed money for Vlad while teaching those people a lesson, and steals a car for him, delivering it to a lockup. Vlad asks Niko to kill Ivan and make it look like a robbery or Roman would get in trouble, and he does, but later Roman and Niko, on some suspicions, find that Vlad was harassing Mallory and go after him in his bar, but he escapes in his car, closely followed by the two, and gets caught where Niko puts a bullet in his head. Vlad worked for Mikhail Faustin, a Russian mob leader, and Niko, having killed him, is forced to work for Mikhail and Dmitry now as a payback. He steals a van with TVs for him and transports it to his locker, and later kills some drug dealers who had stitched up Jacob and helps him when his apartment is ambushed, dropping him off at his cafe. Niko continues to work for Dmitry, first visiting a sex den and persuading them to give a financial cut to Mikhail, and later to a gun store in an alleyway where Niko loads up and drops off Dmitry back at Faustin's and gets a call from Michelle, and they meet up at a burger spot. Niko gets back to Dmitry at a club where they sit down with Mikhail, who, angered and clouded in judgment, asks Niko to kill a guy working for them and prove his loyalty. Niko does as he's told and meets up with Jacob later, who asks for some favors, and he tails some drug dealers who were proving to be a competition and gets rid of them, and later delivers a package for him. He's introduced to Brucey, a friend of Roman, and does more work for Mikhail, who didn't like his daughter's biker boyfriend and straight up orders Niko to kill him. Niko goes after the boyfriend, who brings his whole biker crew with him and kills them all. Later he runs another errand for Mikhail, with Dimitrov constantly advising him to calm down, but he doesn't listen, and Niko keeps on killing people for him, blowing up a truck in a parking garage. Dmitry meets up with Niko and they sit together fussing about the problem of Mikhail, and Niko, having killed the Petrovic's son, was given the task to finish Mikhail if he wanted to stay alive and be spared. Niko goes after Mr. Faustin in his club and chases him up to the rooftop and kills him. He goes to meet Brucey at his workshop, where Brucey gives him the task of tracking down La Rivas using a police computer, as Roman had directed him they needed money. He does so and later meets up with Dmitry in an abandoned warehouse, taking Jacob as his backup in case things go south. Dmitry proves not to be a man of his word and betrays Niko, setting him up with Mr. Bulagarin, who was owed by Niko. Bulagarin's men attack Niko and Jacob and they fight through. Niko picks up Roman heading for his business, but Dmitry gets to it first and they find his shop lit on fire, everything burnt to the ground. Niko and Roman, with help of his girlfriend Mallory, settle in an apartment in Bohan to lay low for a while. In Bohan, Niko meets up with Manny, a friend of Mallory, and helps him clear up the streets from drug dealers and racketeers. Mallory gets Niko more work from Eliza Beta, a drug dealer serving protection for her crew members during drug deals. Niko goes with Playboy to an allocated spot for a deal, but it turns out to be a trap by the police. He clears up the place, successfully managing to escape with Playboy, and takes him back to his apartment. Niko is in dire need of money and does more work for Playboy on a stakeout mission, killing union leaders and clearing up a construction site. Later he helps his friend Dwayne in getting his money back from his girlfriend and getting his status back in Bohan by getting his club called Triangle Club back from squatters and into his territory. He kills a gang member Marlon for Playboy and slowly progresses, doing more tasks for Brucey and Playboy, but soon enough Dwayne and Playboy fall out, both wanting Niko to deal with each other. Playboy wanted Dwayne dead while Dwayne wanted Playboy dead. Niko runs some errands for Francis McReary, a local police commissioner who knew about his past, and then decides to turn on Playboy, seeing that he was the real problem instead of Dwayne. Playboy runs from his apartment chased by Niko, but not for long, and he meets his fate. Elizabeta and Jacob, both drug dealers, were acquaintances, and she gets her product stolen from some guys Jacob had introduced. Nico heads to solve this problem for Jacob. The product was in an old hospital, and as Nico goes there, the place gets raided by the police and escapes, killing cops on his way to a discreet location to meet Jacob. At the meet, they are interrupted by Michelle, his girlfriend, and it's revealed that she was a government agent, her real name being Karen, and Elizabeta's drug racket was being taken down, but Nico, being resourceful, was spared and called by her employers to meet him. Nico takes care of the French Tom situation and meets up with Karen and her employer, and is pressured to take care of Olive Minka for them, as they could land him in jail anytime. He visits Elizabeta, where Manny barges in with his camera guy, only to end up with a bullet in his head, and Nico disposes of their bodies to a doctor who farmed organs and does an errand run or two for McCreary, recovering files of dirt on him and also for Packy. Nico does more work for United Liberty paper contractor and steals cash from a depot with the help of Packy and his gang. Roman ends up getting kidnapped over some gambling fight, and Nico has to save him from a building heavily guarded by mercenaries. Dimitri closes in on Nico and Roman, and they decide to move to an apartment in Algonquin, and meanwhile in Bohan, Nico continues his work as a gun for hire. They steal a sports car for Brucey and join a street race to show off in style. Packy introduces Nico to his brothers Derek and Gerald along with Michael, and they rob the Bank of Liberty together, but have a falling out midway, resulting in Michael getting shot. The bank is surrounded by cops, and they shoot their way out. With a chopper above their heads, they try to cut through the subways and run through the train tracks, tackling cops in their way, and make it into the open city. Finally get the cops off of their tails, and Nico, driving the car, takes them back to their apartment, leaving with his cut. Gerald, the older brother, calls him one day asking for a favor, and Nico agrees and goes on to the U.L. paper contract to work further for them, stealing a chopper and later neutralizing a target with the help of Jacob using the stolen chopper. He meets up with Ray, the capo of the Pecorino family, through McCreary's, and is assigned a task to kill his old acquaintance, Teddy. However, before he could reach his apartment, Teddy is warned, and the Nico slowly makes his way up the building, swarming with his goons and neutralizing Teddy. He meets up with Gerald and is assigned a task to rig a bomb on Enceladus' car, raising suspicion for the Albanian muscle. Nico keeps on working for the McCreary family, kills some local scums for Francis, and then looks for a drunken Derek on the advice of his brother, and kills a guy named Bucky Sligo along with his gang for him. After this, Nico does a job for Ray collecting diamonds, and later meets Frankie for another errand. The list of errands continues for Nico, with different demands from Gerald, Derek, and Ray, directing him to go after Luca to get everyone and his share back. Nico kills Luca and his gang, and with no one left to manage ice for Ray, he's now assigned to do so, but asks for Ray's word to help him find Florian Kravik, the man who had betrayed him years ago and one of the reasons Nico was here in Liberty City today. Nico along with Ray's crew meet up for exchange, but get ambushed by Jimmy's biker gang. To settle the situation, Nico goes after them, chasing them on a bike, and kills them. Ray gives him directions about a man named Talbot who could lead him to Florian. They find Talbot in the triangle, and he leads them to Florian's place, but after interrogating him, Nico finds that he might not have been the betrayer, instead it might have been Darko. Nico goes on a date with Kate at a bar where they get drunk and barely escape the cops. Later he deals with Isaac, the diamond handler for Ray, and finishes him off, and goes to help Florian, who was being scared by some haters, and lure the hater out in the park before finally managing to get rid of him. Florian's lover Bryce was getting blackmailed, and Nico, being a good smarty, helps him, but the blackmailers turn out to be Dimitri's men, and Nico chases them down and gets rid of them. Derek gives him the task of dealing with his old drinking buddy Aiden, who was jailed and was badmouthing him, and they get him while he was being transferred and finish him off near the cliffs at the sea. Nico now helps the Pecorino family, and first steals a truck from Mr. Bell, an important enforcer of the family, and later helps Jimmy Pecorino as security, overlooking a commission handover with the Pavanos and saving him when Pavanos betray and attack, and dropping him off at his house. Nico is asked by Francis to deal with Derek, who is a bad repute for Francis's image up running as a police commissioner. Francis lures Derek into the park, and Derek, worried, asks Nico to have his back, and the two brothers sit on a bench. Nico gets rid of Francis skating from a nearby building and later attends his funeral. His family all around unaware, but in the middle of the ceremony some Albanian hoods attack them, and Nico fights back along with Pardik and drive his body to the cemetery to be buried, and comforts Kate. Bernie asks him to go out for some fun to Firefly Island on a speedboat, but Dimitri's men attack them midway and Nico gets rid of them. He manages some more tasks for Gerald and kidnaps a girl, Gracie, whose father had beef with him, and also helps Phil in stealing cocaine from the Russians at the docks, who brought it in through the sea from the Vice City. Nico is also asked to meet John Gravelli, a member of the Gambetti family, by the UL contract. Jimmy Pecorino finds Anthony, his security guard, wearing a wire, and Anthony, when confronted, gets a heart attack and is sent to the hospital. Nico finishes him off and meets Mr. Gravelli, who asks him to escort his friend Bobby, a politician, to the city hall to make a speech against the Russian organized crime, and his old enemy Dmitri wanted him dead. Nico protects Bobby against the Russian mob and escorts him to safety. Now tasked by Mr. Bell to protect Jimmy from being ratted out, Nico sneaks into an old factory looking for Chubby Charlie and kills him before he can get onto a chopper and run away. Bell, along with Nico, goes back to his old mansion to pick up some arsenal stashed away, but the police waiting for this opportunity chase after them. Bell devises a plan to stash their stuff in another van, and with Nico driving they manage to lose the cops. Pecorino asks Nico to take care of Ray, and he finishes him off after doing an errand for Mr. Gravelli and meets Gerald in jail. The Enceladus exchange diamonds for Gracie, Nico's captive, but Bulgarian men come in their way and they lose the diamonds. Nico comes to know that the Enceladus were in bed with Russians and he destroys their whole cocaine chain. Draco is flown into the country by UL contract, and Nico, along with Roman, visits him. He decides to spare his rotting life, and Mr. Pecorino pays him a visit where he's asked to deliver diamonds to Dmitri, their new contract, along with Phil by his side. Dmitri betrays them, killing the guys collecting the stuff, and Nico and Phil have to fight their way through and chase after the buyer stealing the money and manage to get it back. Dmitri strikes back, killing Roman at his wedding reception, and also finishes off Pecorino, but Nico on his tail chases him with the help of Jacob and guns him down. Nico had won and taken his revenge. The final scene of the game shows a shot of Liberty City with its sky-high statue and tall buildings, and the game ends here. Thanks for watching, and if you liked it, then please consider liking our video and subscribing to our channel. We will see you in the next one.